ॐ पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौः शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvassadbuddhimapnotu, sarvasarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment.
I will be reading from the book Walking the Walk, a Karma Yoga manual by Swami Taganandaji. Work for work's sake. There is an ancient saying in Sanskrit, even a fool does not do anything without a motive. We all have motives behind everything we do. Much of our daily work and a considerable amount of our time are devoted to earning our livelihood, and the motive for this is obvious: to pay our bills, maintain our families, and survive in the marketplace of the world. Besides earning money, we also do a host of other things, and none of those things is motiveless. Motives power the work and bind the person who does that work. Motives are inevitably related to goals. When there are goals, they are either reached or not reached, resulting in what we call either success or failure, which in turn produces either joy or sorrow. All these keeps us tied to the mesmerizing circle of karma and its effect. Is it possible not to get enmeshed in the web of motive, work, results? The answer is yes. We can retain our freedom by doing work for work's sake. In other words, Karma Yoga recommends that the only motive, if we must use the word, powering our work should be the simple conviction that it is good to do what is good or what amounts to the same, the conviction that it is right to do what is right. No other reason, no other motive should color our activities. We should simply choose to remain on the dharma path because that's the only path worth walking on. We should not even expect gratitude. On the contrary, it is we should be grateful for every opportunity we get to practice dharma. When we do work for work's sake and not for any selfish motive, it produces purity of mind, chitta shuddhi, a vital prerequisite for spiritual freedom. Each of us may have our own idea about what is good and what is right. How can I be sure that what I view as good and right is really good and right? As we have seen, the Sanskrit term dharma stands for everything that is good and right. A karma yogi follows the path of dharma. It is through scripture, sastra, reason, yukti, and experience, anubhuti, that we learn what dharma is. Our learning of dharma path may begin with books and generally with the guidance we receive from trusted mentors in our formative years. But reason takes over as soon as we are able to think clearly. It doesn't take a karma yogi too long to realize that what is good and right includes everything in life that makes us more unselfish and nothing that makes us injure others in thought, word, or deed. Although these are broad generalizations, they serve well as working guidelines. Eventually, our own life experience will teach us, if nothing else does, what is truly good and right and what only appears to be so. As karma yogis, we are expected to do what is good and right and then step aside without seeking any reward, any recognition, any gratitude. Our not seeking reward, recognition, and gratitude doesn't mean they won't come. They well may and generally do. But if they don't, as karma yogis, we won't care. The joy of consciously doing what is good and what is right is itself so abundant and powerful that it prevents us from being perturbed by indifference, neglect, even criticism. Believing in the wisdom of the scriptures help. We remember the promise found in Gita: the doer of good never comes to grief, and the assurance of the Vedas: truth alone triumphs, not untruth. This is obviously not easy to practice. A person who wants to work for work's sake must have enormous conviction in the power of goodness, stoic forbearance towards the vagaries of the world, and self-confidence which is strong enough to remain unaffected by praise or blame. Such person loves what is good and what is right for its own sake, recognizing that the life based on truth and goodness is its own reward. Such a life purifies the heart. It frees the mind of its burdens, making us lighter and the world brighter. When we work for work's sake, we are able to minimize and finally crush the spiritually paralyzing mischief of our headstrong ego, and this effectively produces detachment from karma. Work as an offering to God. The second way of detaching from karma is for those who believe in a personal God. This method consists of doing all work as an offering to God. All work is God's work. Doing work is an honor, a privilege, an opportunity. God exists in everyone and in everything. We cannot help anyone, we can only serve. Since we are only dealing with God alone, no matter where we work or what work we do, all service is really a form of worship. Doing work as worship is an effortless way to detach oneself from karma. How does this detachment occur? In the early stages, doing things for oneself or others, work, and doing things for God or out of love for God, worship, remain separate initiatives, each requiring its own quota of time and energy. People often confront dilemmas or experience stress while trying to figure out how to balance the two, work and worship. We enter the second stage when we make a conscious effort to do work as worship. If I owe everything to God, including my own existence, then even I don't belong to myself. In that case, is my work really my work? If all are God's children, isn't working for others the same as working for God's children? If God dwells in me and in everyone and in everything in the world, then no matter who I am dealing with and who I am working for, I am really dealing only with God and working only for God. In which case, what I see as work becomes nothing more and nothing less than worship. This is the third stage, the realization that work is worship. Understanding this theoretically does not, of course, mean that it is easy to practice it. Habits die hard. Only a conscious and determined effort by a person filled with Shraddha makes it possible to begin doing work as worship. Every work, no matter how insignificant, should be done as an offering to God. Usually this means doing work as an offering to one's Ishta, one's chosen ideal through which God is manifested. Seeing God in every person and in every object is the key to this practice. A physician karma yogi's worship will have medical examinations and medicines as an offering to God who appears as a sick person. A teacher karma yogi will worship the student God through the offering of education. If there is any work that cannot be done as an offering to God or out of love for God, a karma yogi shouldn't be doing it. Sri Ramakrishna called this work as worship, practice Shivogane Jivosheba, serving all beings with the knowledge that they are manifestations of God. Joy Ma.
I will be reading a selection from a translation of the story connected with verse 113 of the Dhammapada, which is a collection of teachings of the Buddha. The verse is as follows. Though one should live 100 years, 'twere all in vain, did one not see that all that is doth wax and wane. Instead, 'twere better far to live a single day, and know that all the world contains doth rise and pass away. The story behind this verse is the story of Patachara, a story of great loss. I'll summarize the first part of the story and then read from the translation. In this story, Patachara is about to give birth and, along with her husband and her young son, heads home to be with her parents for the birth. During the journey home, there's a big storm. Her husband, looking for materials to build a shelter for the night, is bitten by a poisonous snake and dies. Meanwhile, Patachara, while waiting for her husband, gives birth to a baby boy. Now, alone with the baby boy and her other young son, she continues on to her parents' home, mourning the loss of her husband. They come upon a river, and being too tired to carry both children at once, Patachara first carries the newborn baby across the river and places him on the bank. She returns to get her other son, but when she is halfway across the river, a hawk flies down toward her baby. Patachara waves her arms, trying to scare away the hawk, but it grabs the newborn baby and flies away. Her older son, thinking that his mother is waving toward him to come to her, walks toward her, falls in the river, and gets swept away. Wailing and lamenting these grave losses, Patachara continues her journey to her parents' home. On the way, she meets a man and asks about her family. She describes where her family lives and asks the man if he knows the family. He says, "Yes, my good woman, I know them, but pray don't ask me about that family. Ask me about any other family you know." She persists, and the man says, "My good woman, last night the storm overturned that house, and it fell on the merchant and his wife and his son, and they perished, all three, and their neighbors and kinsmen are even now burning their bodies on one funeral pyre." Having lost her entire family in one day, Patachara becomes completely overcome with grief and goes mad. She wanders in this state for some time and eventually comes upon the Buddha and his disciples. The Buddha, recognizing that he could be a refuge to Patachara, tells his disciples not to forbid her from approaching. And now I'll read from the translation. She said to the Buddha, "Venerable Sir, be thou my refuge, be thou my support. One of my sons has been carried off by a hawk, the other swept away by the water. By the roadside my husband lies dead. My father's house has been wrecked by the wind, and in it have perished my mother and father and brother. And even now their bodies are burning on one funeral pyre." The teacher listened to what she had to say and replied, "Patachara, be no more troubled. Thou art come to one that is able to be thy shelter, thy defense, thy refuge. What thou hast said is true. One of thy sons has been carried off by a hawk, the other swept away by the water. By the roadside thy husband lies dead. Thy father's house has been wrecked by the wind, and in it have perished thy mother and father and brother. But just as today, so also all through this round of existences, through all the rounds of samsara, thou hast wept over the loss of sons and others dear to thee, shedding tears more abundant than the waters of the four oceans." And he uttered the following stanza. "But little water do the oceans four contain, compared with all the tears that man hath shed, by sorrow smitten and by suffering distraught. Woman, why heedless dost thou still remain?" In this way did the teacher discourse on the rounds of samsara without conceivable beginning. As he spoke, the grief which pervaded her body became less intense. Perceiving that her grief was becoming less intense, he continued his discourse as follows. "Patachara, to one that is on his way to the world beyond, nor sons nor other kith and kin can ever be a shelter or a refuge. How much less can you expect them to be such to you in this present life? He that is wise should clarify his conduct, and so for himself make clear the path that leadeth to nirvana." At the conclusion of the discourse, Patachara obtained the fruit of conversion, and the depravities within her, as numerous as the particles of dust on the whole wide earth, were burned away. Patachara, having obtained the fruit of conversion, requested the teacher to admit her to the order. The teacher sent her to the community of nuns and directed that she be admitted. Afterwards, she made her full profession, and by reason of her happy demeanor, came to be known as Patachara. One day, while filling her water pot with water, she poured out the water to bathe her feet. As she poured out the water, she spilled some on the ground. The water ran a little way and disappeared. The second time, it went a little further. The third time, a little further yet. So she took this very incident for her subject of meditation, and fixing accurately in her mind the three occurrences, she meditated thus. Even as the water I spilled the first time ran a little way and disappeared, so also living beings here in the world are dying in youth. Even as the water I spilled the second time ran a little further, so also living beings here in the world are dying in the prime of life. Even as the water I spilled the third time ran a little further yet, so also living beings here in the world are dying in old age. The teacher, seated in his perfumed chamber, sent forth an apparition of himself, and standing as it were face to face with her, spoke and said, "Though one should live 100 years, 'twere all in vain, did one not see that all that is doth wax and wane. Instead, 'twere better far to live a single day, and know that all the world contains doth rise and pass away."
Om asatoma satkamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya aviravirmayeti rudrayatte dakshinam mukham tena mam pahi nityam. May the divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the divine consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Yesterday I was at the Baha'i retreat in Greenacre in Elliott, Maine, to participate. They had a conference on, they called it One Planet Peace Forum. It was a conference on peace, discussion about how to change the world consciousness, bring peace, and so on. It was a nice experience to hear different perspectives on peace, because many of the presenters were peace activists. There were some authors. There was a portrait artist who was also a peace activist. And there's also one Vedanta Swami happened to be there also. It was fascinating to see how a same subject can be seen from so many different angles. And it was nice because many of these people who were there were actively engaged in trying in their respective fields to promote peace in some way. One of the things I noticed, besides the different approaches, was how we could focus on different, not focus on different, it's, we could either look at something, a subject, from a very dire perspective, like things are bad, or you can look at the same subject from a very positive aspect. And both the ways of doing it have their utility, but it's something that that can be helpful to us in our life, because things are happening all the time, whether at the national level, international level, and our personal levels as well. Now, how we see the things that are happening around us, we have a choice. Either we can look at it very positively, or as much positively as possible, or very negatively. And virtually anything in life can be seen with an optimistic view, or could be seen with a pessimistic view. And so we have to see which is the dominant, our own dominant characteristic, how we view the situations in our life. Now, all this thing I mentioned because this morning I was looking at some of the things that I'm occasionally sent by friends from all over. And there's this one little story someone had sent me about sometime in 2016. So it's almost about more than 7 years ago. So I thought I'll share this story with you because this gives a fairly good idea about how something can be very depressing in some ways, but can also be looked at from a more optimistic standpoint. So this is how it goes. A famous writer was in his study. He picked up his pen and started writing. And this is what that writer wrote. Last year, I had a surgery and my gallbladder was removed. I had to stay stuck to the bed due to this surgery for a long time. The same year, I reached the age of 60 and had to give up my favorite job. I had spent 30 years of my life in this publishing company. The same year, I experienced the sorrow of the death of my father. And in the same year, my son failed in his medical exam because he had a car accident. He had to stay in bed at hospital with the cast on for several days. The destruction of car was another loss. At the end he wrote, "Alas, it was such a terrible year for me." With all these things happening, it just seems inevitable that someone would say something like that. And then we read, when the writer's wife entered the room, she found her husband looking sad and lost in thoughts. From behind his back, she read what was written on the paper. She left the room silently and came back with another piece of paper and placed it on the side of her husband's writing. So this is what his wife wrote. So this is his wife's writing. So she said, she's kind of writing what he could have written. So she says, "Last year, I finally got rid of my gallbladder, due to which I had spent years in pain. I turned 60 with sound health and got retired from job. Now I can utilize my time to write something better with more focus and peace." The same year, my father, at the age of 95, without depending on anyone or without any critical condition, met his Creator. The same year, God blessed my son with a new life. My car was destroyed, but my son stayed alive without getting any disability. At the end, she wrote, "This year was an immense blessing of God, and it passed well." So we can see the events were same, but whether I should look at it in an optimistic way or a pessimistic way makes a big difference. Not just in the state of our mind, but also health. So many of our illnesses and others occur due to this constantly being stressed and constantly being anxious about things. And so Swami Vivekananda once said, and these are his exact words because I memorized it long back. It's like, by being cheerful always and smiling, it takes you nearer to God, nearer than any prayer. So no matter how terrible things might appear, if it is always possible to see something good in whatever that happens. So, one of the lessons that can come to us from this approach is what I sometimes like to call a what-if syndrome, in the sense that we often think about things that have happened in our life and say, what if that had not happened? And it's like I go out and then I have a minor accident and said, oh, if only I had not gone, then that accident would have happened. If I had not done this, or if I had done this. And that kind of thinking is actually totally useless because it's been done. So what if doesn't help me, doesn't help anyone at all. And so a counterpoint to that way of thinking is, if we can somehow train ourselves that whatever is happening in my life was exactly what was meant to happen. Whenever anything happens in my life, it was exactly meant to happen at that time. Now, it's not always easy to kind of maintain this, but it's easier for devotees to do so. If I see myself as a spiritual seeker as a believer, as who believes that there is this divine, compassionate, loving presence. Call that presence by any name. Most of us just might use the word God. So if I believe that God is there to help me, to protect me, always by my side, then whatever is happening in my life, it's somehow for my own good. Many of the things happening, we may not be able to see at all what good it is going to do. But if I trust in the love and compassion and wisdom of God, I will see that with my limited knowledge, with my limited ideas, I think this is terrible, or it feels terrible. But because I trust and have faith in God, I know that somehow God, who is all powerful, all loving, will always do things that will be in my own interest. And if I don't realize it now, I might realize it later. And sometimes in our lives, we have seen that. In retrospect, the things that appear to be like a blow or a shock, we look back after 6 months or a year and we'll say, oh, thank God it happened. Because if that had not happened, this thing wouldn't have happened. And so it's more a test of our own faith, of our own, the word that is often used in Sanskrit is Shraddha. That the depth of our faith is tested, especially in situations that outwardly look very challenging and difficult. So this story I found it very helpful, very instructive to see how everything can be seen. It's a little bit like what kind of glasses I wear. If they are tinted red, I'm going to see everything red. If they're tinted yellow, I'm going to see everything yellow. So when we look at this world, what kind of glasses are there on my mind's eye? And if those glasses are filled with this love and faith in the divine, chances are we will be able to be more cheerful and be nearer to God. That's what the words of Swami Vivekananda were. So that was something I thought I could share with you this morning. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu.